money because then once you have money, you can feed your passions and fuel your passions. But I'm a firm believer in if you love what you're doing, the money will come.
Life that I'm living. Sit back, chill, start a multi-business with the focus, making millions. It's the stuff that dreams are made of, and no made of. Stop the mission ahead of the visit, take care. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Let's Talk Business. I am your host, Marvell Robinson, and I am so happy that you have taken the time to join us for another wonderful episode today. Today, I have a special guest with me, as all of my guests are special, but this one in particular, he is truly an individual who has an impact on various communities. His business is a very active one, and I am privileged to be able to spend some time with him today so he can talk more about his journey with you. Who am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about Mr. Bryant Smith. Mr. Smith, how you doing today, sir?
Well, I'm doing excellent. How you doing?
I'm doing okay, my friend. Thank you again for taking this time out to spend some time with us today. And what I wanted to do, Bryant, is that I wanted to talk a little bit about your beginning of and what were some of the things that inspired or motivated you to pursue the course that you have. Talk to me a little bit.
Man, I appreciate it, and thank you and your audience for just wanting to hear a little bit about this little chocolate boy from the Southside of Chicago who currently lives in Clemson, South Carolina. I started Smith Consulting and Networking about 25 years ago as a a way for me to have a bigger impact on the lives of a lot of people. I was working as a college administrator, and I had written my first book, and I was just trying to find ways to get the messages out there that I wanted to get out there and to help really a lot of Black and brown college students at the time. And so I decided that I would send some material to a speakers bureau and see if they were willing to accept me as a client. And I sent some stuff to them, and they actually did accept me as a client. And so I worked for them for 2 years running Smith Consulting part-time while still being a college administrator. And then after about 2.5 years, I decided that it was time for me to run Smith Consulting as a full-time business. And I stepped aside and have stepped out on faith, broadened into not just being an author and a speaker, but into what I call a comprehensive consultant. My job is really around change management, performance, and helping people be better people. So that's pretty much how I got started, just out there in the field deciding, hey, I should work for myself.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Mr. Smith, as I listen to you, it sounds like you were motivated based on a service personality type. Doesn't seem like it's ultimately motivated by money. Not that you're money driven or not, but the point is, talk to me about that.
Yeah, no, man, it's funny that you should mention that. I have never been driven by money. Money's nice. It's great that you can make money because then once you have money, you can feed your passions and fuel your passions. But I'm a firm believer in if you love what you're doing, the money will come. So you put your effort into trying to provide a service, to be a use for people, to give them something that they need or want, and then they'll be willing to pay you for it as long as you are the best at what it is that you do. And so I had the fortune of meeting a professor by the name of Dr. Naeem Akbar while I was working at higher ed. And Dr. Akbar had a philosophy that said, you should work for a company for 7 years. And in those 7 years, you should learn everything it is about that company that you need to know, so that on 7 years and day one, you could quit your job and become that company's #1 competitor. So that's sort of the model that I went by. I said, you know what? I need to learn everything I need to know about higher education so that I can provide a service to these colleges and universities and their students, and then branch out on my own and compete with them, not to be a college or a university, but to be a teacher for college administrators and students. And so that's what I've been. And my motto has always been, I don't come to make money or to make friends. I show up to make a difference in people's lives. And that's what I do. So the money's nice, but it's really at the end of the day, who have I helped and how have I helped them?
Okay, Mr. Smith, look at you. See, that's fiery right there, because as I continue to hear you express yourself on this point, it makes me have to ask you this question. how did you become that way? You were inspired to want to help and educate and teach those in the community, and you said you originally came from Chicago. What was the starting point that made you say, I'm gonna go ahead and focus on this particular industry? And then who were the persons in your life that helped you to see that you could accomplish it and get it done?
Yeah. So I think coming out of Chicago, you never really realize the skill sets you have until you're placed in an environment where you have to use them. And so I had grown up in an all-black environment, sent to the cornfields of Central Illinois, down to Illinois State University in Normal, Illinois. And that's when I really kind of discovered who Bryant K. Smith was, and started realizing that, one, I didn't like bullies. Two, I loved helping people. Three, I had the gift of gab. And so I decided there has to be a position or a career that could help me do that. And fortunately for me, when I graduated college, I gave myself sort of two options. One, the military, or two, to find a job in my field. My discipline is communication. I had a bachelor's in broadcasting at the time. And the job that I saw was recruiting students for Illinois State University. And so when I went and interviewed and applied for that job, fortunately for me, the person who was going to be my supervisor was someone who was familiar with me as a student leader. I had been very active in the Black Student Union as an undergraduate. I was always attending forums and workshops, and she noticed that I was never afraid to speak up in those environments. And so she said that's the thing that made me stand out from the other candidates, and that's why she hired me, because she had witnessed firsthand that I could talk to a crowd, I could hold an audience, and I could give information. And so that's one of the things that, and she's one of the main people who kind of put me on this path, because not only did she hire me, but she introduced me to the concept of professional development, where you attend conferences to learn about the profession that you're in and pick up new skills. But she had a rule that I couldn't go to conferences unless I was presenting, which gave me a passion for teaching and training. And it also gave me a lot of experience. So I started going to conferences, I started presenting at conferences, and then somebody messed up and told me that they actually pay people to present and to speak at conferences. And once they told me that I had the bug, I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it, but I knew that my future involved speaking to people and talking and training. And so from there, I just, took that leap of faith. Like I said, it was probably 3 or 4 years later where I actually got the opportunity to submit some material to that speakers bureau, and they hired me just based on the brochure that I submitted to them, telling them these are the topics I wanted to talk about.
Okay. So wow, that is very impressive, my friend. And as I'm listening to you, it's like, wow, you've had such a wonderful journey that led you to where you are now. Your public speaking, large conferences. I've seen your website where you're talking in front of a lot of people. You said you got the gift of gab. We gonna call it definitely a gift. It's a blessing indeed, because what's interesting about this is that this is kind of where I met you. We were at a Ivy Tech Community College event, and it was the Black Men's Achieve Initiative conference. And
Yes.
from that conference, you were one of the keynote, or one of these speakers that be able to rally around these young men and give them some advice and information. But even before that, you had some merch and you had some publications. And so let's talk a little bit about how you got into the whole merch and also some of the foundation of the teaching that you give these young men.
Yeah, so it's interesting. My journey into being an author, which is my first piece of merchandise, came because while I was working at Illinois State University, I had an incident with my supervisor, and not the one that hired me, but the person above her. And he was a white male who I was actually applying for a position at another institution. A mentor, a friend, a fraternity brother of mine had worked at that institution, and he was about to retire, and he selected me to be his replacement. So same field, I was going to be recruiting for this other university. He had told his boss, hey, I found this guy, I know him. All we need to do is talk to him a little bit and, make the right offer. He'll be up and running. And so I went, I interviewed, everything was fine. They wanted to offer me the job. They just wanted to check my references. He called the white man who was my director and asked him about me. And the white man told him all kind of crazy stuff about me, that I was always missing assignments. I wasn't dependable, a whole bunch of stuff that just wasn't true. And it wasn't true. And it was like, the black guy called me. He's like, hey, man, do you and your boss have a conflict? Because this is what he said about you. I was like, well, that's funny. He couldn't have said that about me because he just gave me my evaluations and my rating is 1 hash mark from superior. And it didn't list any of these things that he just told you. And so at that moment, I was faced with my very first professional dilemma. I can go back here and choke this man and go to jail, or I can try to find some other way to vent my frustration. So I wrote a poem called Black Not Blind. That poem I made into a t-shirt. That t-shirt I turned into a book, my first book. So that's how I got into the merchandise business, was writing that first book. And once I discovered, again, through working with Dr. Naeem Akbar when I was in grad school and meeting him, he traveled the country. He took his own books. He published his own books. He talked to me about the idea that when you write books, you want to write them so that brothers in prison can read them. You don't need to have such complicated language that the average person couldn't understand it. And that's been the philosophy that I have. I've written 9 books, and they're all probably in the 100 to 150 page realm. I don't write big novels. I don't write large books, but I write books that have large impact. So the books I take with me when I'm traveling and speaking at different locations. I also decided, having gone out and I was doing a lot of male development work, I realized that a lot of young black men were disconnected from our history. And so there were a lot of people who I admired and had learned about growing up as a child that I wanted to introduce or reintroduce to some of these young males. And so I started putting their quotes on the back of t-shirts. One of my most famous t-shirts, I'm known as the manhood guy, the got manhood. Just like that, the Got Milk commercial, I have t-shirts that say got manhood, and I will put famous quotes by Malcolm X, W.B. Du Bois, Huey Newton. I've got lots of different quotes that I put on the back of shirts. And even though the young brothers didn't know the person, the quotes were very powerful and they resonated with them. So that's how I started selling merchandise. And it's just the idea of wanting to have multiple streams of income. When you start your own business, when you're an entrepreneur, you never want to be so dependent on just one stream of income that if that dries up, you don't have any additional income coming in. So I speak, I teach, I train, I consult, but I also have books, I have t-shirts, and I'm going to have a couple other products coming out real soon that I can't talk about right now. So.
All right, okay. Thank you for dropping them gems for us, man. And
Yes.
you know what? You're absolutely right about the young generation in terms of those quotes, how they're not outdated. These young folks are familiar with these quotes because of how society uses them, but they may not even know who the man is behind these quotes. Now, what I wanted to ask you in connection with what you just said, which is so valuable, multiple streams of income. So with that being said, how do you manage all that you have? And are you managing those things solo? Are you a solopreneur, or are you a true entrepreneur that has a staff, a team? How are you managing your time with all these different avenues of income that you have to manage?
That's an excellent question. I named my business Smith Consulting and Network, because when I first started, I knew it was me, and I didn't want to be dependent on other people, but I also understood that no one gets anywhere without a team or a group. So what I have is a network of people that I tap into. So while if you call me, there's no middle person between you and I from talking about what your issues are. I don't have a secretary or something like that. I do have a network that sometimes I just am not the person to solve your problem. But because we have a relationship, I am willing to connect you with other consultants or other artists or other graphic designers or web developers who are within the network that I have to help them help you. And to give, I believe in this whole thing about reciprocity. I am going to help other people because I know people have helped me. Not because I expect those people who I'm helping to help me, but because somebody else helped me in the past, I am paying it forward by expanding my network. And it's my responsibility to keep that network moving, so to speak. So I have other people that I bring into various situations. It's the collab. It's a hip hop philosophy where we collaborate with other people in the community.
Yeah, I agree with you. Thank you for sharing that. Because what I hear is that you are also putting yourself in a position to be utilized as a resource base as well. If you don't know
Yes.
it, you know who to get them connected to. Is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly. That's what it is. You always want to be a resource. And whether you are the resource that provides the solution or the resource that connects them to some other means of having a solution. And that's, one of the hallmarks of my business. Most people who know me know that I am able to customize a solution for their needs, or I'm able to connect them to the right people who can. So it's always a win-win with me. I have never lost a client based on my inability to help them or
Yeah.
to connect them with the right person. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
always.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So, Brian, let me ask you this then. When it comes to this service that you're providing, in addition to the
Yes.
other materials that you have, when it comes to knowing your value and giving a decent price for your services and your products, what or who has helped you to be able to come up with some reasonable prices for those you're trying to target?
That's a very good question. And to kind of give you a great answer, I have to tell another story. Bill Gates actually helped me understand my value. I had a friend who worked at a school in Seattle. He brought me in to do some work for the actually a elementary and a middle school that he was working at. And I did the work at the elementary school and middle school. And since I was coming from South Carolina all the way to Seattle, he actually connected me with a couple of other schools. So I went to another middle school, did some work, got back home. My phone rings. It's my friend. He says, "Hey, man, I don't know if you know it, but Bill Gates' kids were at the school you spoke at. And apparently they went home and told their dad all about the great work you did. And now they want you to come speak at Microsoft." And I was like, "What? Microsoft?" He's like, "Yeah." He said, "A sister from Microsoft is going to call you. So-and-so secretary, she's going to set it up. All you have to do is give her your price. Everything's good." And sure enough, a couple of days later, I get a phone call from Microsoft. Woman on the phone tells me who she is. She's with Microsoft. Asks me how much would it be for a 30-minute speech on diversity. Now, at the time, the Speakers Bureau was charging people about $3,000 for 1 hour speech from me. So when she said 30-minute speech, I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to have 3,000 and charge her 1,500. That's just silly. It's Microsoft. So I told her it would be $12,500 plus travel expenses. She said, "Okay, thank you, we'll be in touch," and hung up. A couple of weeks later, my friend calls me back. He says, "Man, what happened?" I said, "What do you mean, what happened?" He said, "What happened with you and Microsoft?" I said, "Nothing. I gave the lady my price. I'm waiting for her to get back with me with all of the details." He said, "Nah, man, they called me. They said you gave them a price that was too low. You gave them 12,000. They wanted a $20,000 speaker. They figured you weren't good enough." So that lesson taught me I need to make sure I know my worth and my value, and also know what the people who are hiring me normally spend, what they're used to spending. And so that taught me a very valuable lesson to be kind of realistic about who I'm dealing with. Yes, if a company is a Microsoft or another Fortune 100 company, I have a price for them.
Okay.
If they are the local community agency, I have a price for them. So I have never, again, it's one of those areas. I have never lost a job other than that Microsoft job based on money. And so I work with people to find out what are their budgets, what are their needs. And sometimes, again, I just am not the guy, because I am no longer the $1,000 speaker. So if you only have $1,000 speaker, $1,000 for whatever the training or consulting you need with me, I may be able to do it, I may not. It just depends on the scope of work that it is that you need. So I have learned that I kind of know my worth, and I have a sweet spot that I am in the market right now, and I think it is working for me, and I'll keep using it.
Okay, okay. So you just keep on dropping gems, brother. You just keep on dropping them. Because now as I'm listening to you, you know your value, but what it sounds like is you take in consideration the budgets of the entities that's trying to get you. Now, it didn't sound like too much negotiation was going on, because they didn't really give you anything, but you gave them something. But what I appreciate about what you said was you're no longer a $1,000 speaker. So now, because of that experience, it helped you to elevate your game based on what you experienced there. And that's something that a lot of people can learn from that. Now, let me ask you this. I got to keep bringing this up, because coming from the streets of Chicago, You know, Chicago has its own flavor, has its own personality, does its own thing. But then you, in your company, have established a kind of what you mentioned, a network. Now, within that network, you've been able to navigate into different areas, different cities, and provide this service as well. How were you able to make the necessary adjustments for the people? Because it's not always easy to gel with people based on personalities. So how were you able to manage that and make that work?
So the college experience is an experience of growth. And going outside of Chicago to a small town where I didn't know a lot of people and having to make new friends taught me the value of networking and taught me about connections. How, because what you find out is your very first job you get is probably based on what you know. The next job you get is probably going to be based on who you know. And so what I decided early on was that there were just certain types of people, certain groups of people that I was going to be connected to. I DJ'd my way through college. So I met a lot of folks who I DJ'd events for. I made a lot of good friends. I started a social club in college. I started in high school, but I took it to college. So I've always been sort of communal in that sense that I recognize how you connect with people, how you create a synergy by being willing and being open to new experiences and to meet new people and make new friends. That's pretty much how I've operated my business. And so being from Chicago was not a deficit. It was actually a plus. I learned once I left Chicago that everything I learned while being in Chicago was enough to help me survive anywhere. You can place me in any environment. I've traveled the world. I've been in what you might call the hood, and I've been sitting at the table with a king. So I understand what it is to code switch, if you want to call it, to network, to be able to be in those places and not be uncomfortable, but be decisive and to make sure people understand that I'm not here begging for anything. I'm here offering assistance and to provide you a service, and I'm going to help you to the best of my ability, regardless of whether you got $1 million or 2 cents. If you ask me for some help, I'm going to figure out a way to help you.
Okay. Thank you for that. So, you know, I was just thinking about something you said previously. And when I think about your company and the way you have it set up, you provide a service, but you also have products. When you think about, how can I say this? I want to make sure I say it right, my brother, because I know you go give me the right answer if I ask the right question. So
just say it.
Yes. So I guess my question to you is, when you think about the services and the products, you put them together. What is the greatest challenge that you have found yourself dealing with as you deal with that type of business structure?
Wow, the greatest challenge is probably because it's a business where you're dealing with people. And what I've found is that people don't do business with people they don't know and that they don't trust. And so this is different from, if I just want to go to the grocery store and I buy my groceries. People have to know Bryant Smith. They have to have seen Bryant Smith do something. They have to have heard or been given a sort of somebody else had for me and introduce me to them before they're willing to do business with me. And so you spend a lot of time cultivating relationships before you actually get any type of return on those relationships. And so that is something that it has taken me a long time to learn, to master, so to speak. I started out, all I cared about was service delivery. I just want to show up, talk, do my training, and go about my business. I didn't want to do the marketing. I didn't want to do the phone calls. I didn't want to do the email. I didn't want to do the socializing that you do sometimes after the conference is over. You know, those were things that I just wasn't interested in. I was like, you see my work. Let my work speak for me. So that has been the biggest challenge, is to try to make sure that you are able to connect with people and that you understand that at the end of the day, this is about people, and people just don't trust everyone to help them solve their people problems.
Gotcha. So I got 2 more questions for you, and I'm going to try to wrap it up for you. So here's the other one. When it comes to balance, because of your type of business, and it has you going out in these different locations, real quickly, can you tell me how you're able to maintain a balance being a man that is married?
You know, the interesting thing about that, it's tough. I tell people all the time that I've spent the last 25 years helping other people. And while I'm out on the road helping other people, who's at home helping my kids? Who's at home helping my family? And so you have to try to find ways to put these boundaries in place that says, yes, I would love to take this speaking engagement, but I promised my kid I'd be at his basketball game. Or I promised my daughter I would be at her scholarship awards banquet. So you just, it's about sacrifice. Sometimes I make the sacrifice because if I do take this speaking engagement, then we'll be able to take the family vacation. Other times it is, I started working for myself so that no one could tell me I couldn't do something for my family and that I wasn't in a position to do something to help somebody else who might not even be in my family. So the balance thing is an adjustment. It helps if you've got a partner and a family that understand what you're doing, that believe in what it is that you're doing, that see your passion and see your commitment, but they also see the outcome.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the number of times I've been someplace and somebody's walked up on me and I'm with one of my children or my wife or something. They're like, Mr. Smith, I met you at such and such, and I just want to thank you. Your advice helped me get a job. Your advice helped me stay in school. Your advice helped my city. Your advice helped me in my management of my employees. So there's all those kind of things. So they get to see that I might not have been around, but I was still out making a difference.
All right, Mr. Smith. So with that being said, do me this favor. Tell people how can they get in contact with you. Give them a phone number, give them an email address or a website.
There we go. If you want to email me directly, it is smithcan@mac.com. So smithcan, all one word, SMITHCAN smithcan@mac. If you want to check out the website, you can look at smithcan.com or you can look at BryantKSmith.com. Either one of those will get you to me. And then if you want to call me, if you want to check out and have a consultation with me, that number is 864-207-0267. I help make good people great and great people become memorable, and I want to have a great experience helping you be memorable anytime you need it.
All right, Mr. Smith. I want to thank you again, my friend, for joining us, and I look forward to connecting with you soon. All right, you take care. All right, buddy?
I got you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
All right. And for the rest of our guests, we just want to tell you, thank you again for joining us. Hopefully this information was impactful to you in some way. And may you continue to think like a boss and move like a boss. And next time, join us for another episode of Let's Talk Business. Y'all take care.